Stride Audio Show.
Presented by Speak English with Us.
You hear every word, nod fast, and still miss the real message. Then the moment is gone.
Exactly. And the worst part is that the other person has already moved on while your brain is still unpacking one sentence.
This is a B1 level episode, perfect for intermediate learners. Beginners, you're welcome too.
Quick question: when someone says, maybe later, do you hear a soft no or a real maybe?
And when your coworker says, if you have time, do you hear a request? Or a warning in a polite shirt?
That's the whole game today. Not just words, but the real message hiding behind them.
We're training your ear for pragmatic inference and top-down listening, which sounds fancy, but it's really about asking, what does this person want me to do?
I used to catch the words and miss the point completely. Someone would say, no rush, and I'd still panic like a tiny office alarm.
Same. And then I'd answer too literally, which is a great way to sound polite and completely off target at the same time.
Today, we'll move through real-life moments. A train change, a last-minute task, a friend turning down plans, and a store rule said way too fast.
You'll learn how to spot a hint, how someone might imply something, and how to pick up on the real meaning before the conversation runs ahead of you.
We'll also show you how to know if you're on the same page or if you need a quick reset.
And yes, we're going to practice read between the lines too. Because sometimes the most important part is the part nobody says out loud.
And I know what you're doing right now. You're probably listening while making coffee, staring at a screen, or pretending not to check your phone.
Good news, this episode still works if your brain is only half awake. We'll keep it practical, clear, and very real.
Stay until the end for our Word Tour 5 expressions that'll help you catch hidden meaning faster.
And later, we'll give you one tiny trick that can change the whole way you listen. But first, let's get into the story. Let's start with the train platform scene, because that's where this problem gets brutally real. You hear the words, but the timing tells a different story.
Right. The station clerk says, if you can move to the next train, that help. And the grammar sounds optional, but the tone is quietly urgent.
Exactly. And if you only hear can and help, you miss the pressure hiding in the soft wording.
So the real question is not, what did they say? It's, what are they pushing me to do?
Yes, and that's where top-down listening saves you, because you're starting with the purpose, not the grammar.
Let's build the scene. Imagine the platform is crowded, the speaker crackles, and the clerk says, you might want to board now.
That's not a casual suggestion. It's a fast hint that you should move now, not later.
And if you miss that hint, you stay there smiling like a tourist while everyone else disappears.
Exactly. And then you're the person asking, wait, was that for me? After the door has already shut.
Now let's do the office version. Your coworker says, can you look at this when you get a second?
On paper, that sounds flexible. In real life, it often implies urgency without saying, right now.
I once answered one of those messages 3 hours later and acted surprised when the team was already stressed. Brilliant strategy. Terrible timing.
That's the pain point, though. The sentence is polite, but the social meaning is not relaxed at all.
So if you pick up on the pace, the punctuation, and the sender's pattern, you can respond before the situation gets messy.
And the best response is often a confirmation question like, so you need this today, right? That keeps you on the same page without sounding robotic.
Here's another one. A friend says, maybe we should do dinner another time.
That one hurts a little because the surface meaning sounds open, but the social meaning is usually a polite no, or at least not now.
And people hate hearing that because it feels cleaner to pretend it's a schedule issue.
But if you read between the lines, you hear the boundary, the distance, the gentle exit.
So instead of pushing, you can answer with dignity, "Sure, no problem. Just let me know if you'd like to meet later."
That's nice because it respects the message without forcing the other person to say something harsher.
The tricky part is that English often protects feelings through indirect language, and if you're expecting direct speech, you can miss the real action.
Exactly. Indirect language isn't meant to confuse you. It's often meant to soften the request, reduce pressure, or give the other person room.
Which means your job is detective work, not word-by-word translation.
Yes, and the clues are usually in three places: the verb choice, the speed, and what happens next.
For example, could you possibly send it soon? Sounds like a request, but the word soon is doing heavy lifting.
Right? The message is less about politeness and more about movement. A hint can do a lot of work when the speaker wants to avoid sounding harsh.
And if the speaker says, "I'm not saying you're late," they're absolutely implying you're late.
Oh, that one is so true. The sentence denies it while the tone confirms it.
Let's practice the real skill now. If you hear, "We're pretty tight on time," what do?
You don't just translate it. You ask yourself, do they want me to speed up, simplify, or stop talking?
And then you reply with a short confirmation like, "Got it, I'll keep this brief." That shows you picked up on the message.
And if you say, so you'd like me to send the draft now, you're checking that you're on the same page before the confusion grows.
There's also the awkward moment when someone says, "No pressure," but their eyes are basically pressure with a tie on.
That visual is painfully accurate. And your answer should be calm, not dramatic.
You can say, "Thanks, I'll do my best," or if you need a fast answer, I can give you one now.
Those replies keep the conversation smooth because they show you understood the real request, not just the soft wording.
So today's big idea is this: listen for intention first, words second.
And by the way, there is a phrase for this. We call it read between the lines. We'll break it down later in our word tour.
Before we move on, notice the pattern: indirect language, hidden urgency, and one small action question.
If you train that habit, you stop freezing halfway through the conversation and start answering the real message faster.
And honestly, that's a huge upgrade from standing there mentally translating while everyone else has already left the room.
Exactly. So keep these scenes in mind because the next part is where we turn them into practical speaking moves. So here's the big question. If fast English is full of hints, should we ever just ask people to be direct?
I don't think so, because real conversations aren't built for perfect clarity. If you demand directness every time, you lose the natural flow.
But that sounds like you're asking learners to guess more and understand less. Isn't that risky?
It can be, but I'd argue that guessing is already part of listening. People constantly imply things, and if you don't catch that layer, you miss the actual message.
I see your point, but I think the danger is that learners confuse a polite hint with the full meaning and respond too slowly.
Sure, but that's not a reason to avoid indirect speech. It's a reason to train better top-down listening so you can read the situation before you lock on to every word.
Hold on. If someone says, maybe you could send it soon, and the listener thinks it's casual, that can cause a real problem.
Yes, but the fix isn't to make everyone speak like a legal notice. The fix is learning to pick up on tone, timing, and repeated patterns.
So you're saying the listener should do more work than the speaker?
In a way, yes. Communication is shared work. If the speaker implies urgency politely, the listener still needs to notice that social signal and answer properly.
I agree the communication is shared, but I still think many learners hear the words and freeze. Then they don't know whether the message is pressure, preference, or just information.
And that's exactly why we teach the confirmation move. You don't need to decode everything instantly. You can ask, "So you mean you want this today?" That gives you time and keeps you on the same page.
But what if the other person was only making a soft suggestion? If you confirm too strongly, you might sound paranoid or a bit intense.
Not if you do it naturally. "Do you want me to send it today?" is not intense. It's smart. It shows you're listening for the real message instead of pretending every sentence means exactly what it says.
I still think there's emotional labor in that. When someone says, maybe later, and means no, the listener has to protect the relationship and the face of the other person at the same time.
That's true, but it's also why indirect language exists. It gives people a polite exit. If you can read between the lines, you can respond with grace instead of forcing a blunt answer.
Yet not everyone has the same social experience. Some people are used to very direct English, so they may miss the hint entirely.
Exactly, and that's why we need exposure. The more examples you hear, the faster your brain learns the pattern. Like seeing the same traffic sign enough times that you stop reading the letters and just react.
That's a good image, but I'm still not convinced that indirect language is always learner-friendly.
I didn't say it was easy. I said it was real. And real English includes a lot of soft requests, careful refusals, and messages that live between the lines.
So let me push back once more. If learners rely too much on guessing, won't they start over-interpreting everything?
They might if they guess wildly. But the goal isn't random interpretation. The goal is to ask, what action is most likely here? That's pragmatic inference in motion.
Okay, I can work with that. So instead of asking, what does every word mean? We ask, what does the speaker want next?
Exactly. And that simple shift makes you faster, calmer, and much less likely to get stuck halfway through the conversation.
Let's test it with a sample line. We're kind of short on time. What's the best listener response?
Got it, I'll keep this brief. Or should I send the summary now? Both show you picked up on the real pressure.
Nice. And if a friend says, maybe another time, the right move is not an essay about your feelings.
Sadly, that was younger me. I used to write whole emotional novels in reply to one soft no. Very efficient. For nobody.
That's painfully relatable. But here's the important part. Once you stop taking every sentence at face value, you stop getting blindsided by politeness.
And once you stop getting blindsided, you start hearing the rhythm of the conversation. The rhythm tells you whether to speed up, wait, clarify, or back off.
So maybe the debate isn't direct versus indirect. Maybe it's, can you recognize the purpose quickly enough?
Now that's the real question. If you can spot the purpose, the words become easier to handle.
And I'll add one more thing. Sometimes the listener doesn't need a perfect answer. They just need a response that shows understanding.
Right, and that response can be tiny, got it, makes sense, or I'll handle it now. Short, clear, and socially tuned.
So we've argued our way to a pretty useful middle ground. Don't translate slowly, but don't guess blindly either.
Exactly. Use the signal, check the purpose, and answer in a way that proves you're on the same page.
And if you're still worried, remember this. You're not trying to become a mind reader.
Thank goodness. Because I'd failed that test spectacularly. What you're really doing is learning how to notice the signal that's already there.
That's the skill we want. Listen for the real message, not just the surface words.
And in a second, we'll move into the language itself and break those 5 expressions apart so you can use them naturally.
So we've seen the problem. Fast English can hide the real message, and your job is to catch the purpose first.
right? And now we're taking those ideas and turning them into 5 useful expressions you can actually use.
We've already heard them in the story, so the word tour should feel familiar, not like a surprise test. Okay, let's go back to those scenes for a second, because the words make much more sense when you hear them inside a real moment.
Right? Not as a list, but as the exact language people use when they're trying to stay polite, fast, or a little bit hidden.
We heard a lot of soft language today, and one of the smallest but most useful words was hint.
A hint is a small and direct suggestion, not a big loud request. If I say, I'm a bit hungry, that can be a hint that I want to eat soon.
So it's not the meal, it's the tiny push toward the meal.
Exactly. And in our train scene, you might want to board now was a hint that moving sooner would be smart.
And that connects to imply. If you imply something, you suggest it without saying it directly.
Like if a coworker says, we're tight on time, they're implying urgency without saying, hurry up.
So the message is softer on the surface, but the pressure is still there underneath.
That's where pick up on becomes really important. To pick up on something means to notice and understand it.
Not just hear it, notice it. If I pick up on the fast pace, I know to keep my answers short.
And if you don't pick up on it, you might give a long answer while the other person is already mentally leaving the room.
That's such a dramatic image, but painfully accurate.
It happens. That's why a short confirmation sentence helps so much. It shows you caught the real point.
Which brings us to be on the same page. That means both people understand the situation in the same way.
So if I say, you need this today, right? And you say, yes, exactly. Now we're on the same page.
It's not just agreement, it's shared understanding about what happens next.
I like that one because it saves conversations from weird little accidents.
Like when one person thinks later means this afternoon, and the other person thinks later means next month.
I've been the person living in next month. Not my proudest role.
And the last one is probably the most detective-like, read between the lines.
To read between the lines means to find the hidden meaning in what someone says.
So if someone says, maybe another time, you read between the lines and hear polite refusal, not just a scheduling problem.
Exactly, and that's the emotional skill in this episode. You're not trying to force a direct answer out of every sentence.
You're listening for the intention, the pressure, the soft exit, the tiny request.
Let's make these feel even more real. I'd love to help, but I'm packed today. That can imply the person can't take on more.
And if they say, maybe check back tomorrow, that's a hint to come back later, not a hard promise.
We're on a very tight schedule is another one. If you pick up on that, you won't start a long side story.
You'll keep it short, save everyone's time, and look really professional.
Which is a wonderful accidental outcome.
And if your friend says, it's okay, really, after you cancel last minute, you may need to read between the lines and realize they're being kind, not necessarily thrilled.
That one matters because language isn't only about facts. It's about relationship management too.
When you're on the same page, you can answer with the right amount of speed, warmth, and clarity.
So the pattern is simple. Spot the hint, notice what they imply, pick up on the tone, check if you're on the same page, and read between the lines when the meaning stays quiet.
And if that sounds like a lot, remember, it's one habit at a time, in one real conversation at a time.
Use these phrases in your own voice, in your own timing.
And listen for them this week, because once you start hearing them, you'll notice them everywhere. So today's big idea was simple but powerful. In fast English, you don't just listen for words. You listen for purpose, pressure, and hidden meaning.
Right. And when you catch the intention first, the conversation gets easier, faster, and a lot less awkward.
Here's the first move to try this week. When someone speaks, Pause for 1 second and ask yourself, what do they want me to do?
That tiny question changes everything. It pulls your brain away from slow translation and toward real-time understanding.
The second move is to answer with a confirmation line. Try, so you mean I should send it today, or you're saying it's better to wait, right?
That keeps you on the same page and gives the other person a chance to correct you before the meaning slips away.
The third move is to notice patterns, not just individual words, because a hint, a pause, or a polite phrase often says more than the sentence itself.
Exactly. English is full of little side doors, and if you only stare at the front door, you miss half the room.
I still remember how often I nodded too fast and then realized 3 seconds later that I'd missed the real point.
Same here. I used to sound confident while being completely wrong. A beautiful disaster, really.
But once you start reading between the lines, you stop feeling stuck in that half-second delay.
And that's the real upgrade. Less panic, more clarity, better timing.
Before you go, we want to hear from you. Tell us in the comments, what kind of hidden meaning do you miss most in Fast English?
We read every single comment. Try one of today's phrases in your next conversation and see how much faster the meaning lands.
Next time, we'll keep building your natural listening skills with another real-world situation.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.